thank Senator for Palestine for having me today and give the talk. It's an honor for me. So for today's talks, I want to shed light to the concept of Palestine inception seen in Western mainstream media. The term stems from a documentary produced by Palestinian-owned Watermelon Picture. It describes a pattern of systematic suppression of Palestinian and allies' voice from freedom of speech, freedom of expression, and the right to protest. Since 2023, the genocide in Gaza has drawn significant global media attention. It became heavily discussed in civil discourses. Advocates and activists have criticized the stark contrast in the portrayals of Palestinian people and the state of Israel in Western legacy media. For example, reports indicate that Canadian newsrooms are still reluctant to use the word Palestine or genocide in their coverage. In 2023, over 750 American journalists signed over a letter to oppose newsroom biased coverage of the genocide. It wasn't just America. Journalists from several other Western nations also joined in this struggle to call out their own system for violating work ethics in the newsrooms. A study found that in order to promote its propaganda and control public opinions about the genocide, Western legacy media has compromised and even sacrificed three important aspects of journalism: truth, context, and independence. About truth, we have seen widespread disinformation and misinformation that go against West Palestinian cause. For example, in late 2023, Western media like the New York Times and BBC deliberately spread rumors about Hamas war crimes despite having no evidence whatsoever.
Shame.
Even though these outlets later corrected the fake news, lots of people had already believed in them. This kind of blatant lie reduces Palestinian struggle to terrorism. It frames Palestinian people as violent and inhumane. It justifies Israeli attack on civilian infrastructures and murder of civilians in Gaza as an act of self-defense. About context, coverage about the genocide often excludes the complicated historical context that dated back to the early 20th century. They ignore the fact that Israel is a colonial project facilitated by the Britain and later strongly endorsed by the US. They never mention the Balfour Declaration or the Nakba. They pretend like the genocide only started because of October 7. They completely neglect the century-long oppression that is subjugating, displacing, and murdering generations of Palestinian people.
Shame.
About independence, Western legacy media has adopted Israel's rules of journalistic practices, including military censorship and pre-approval process. It means that in order to have access to Gaza, Western news outlets must agree to only report what the Israeli military deems as suitable for publishing. As a result, these organizations refuse to call out Israel's war crimes. They suppress any criticism towards Israeli officials. They silence the calls to end the genocide and to allow journalistic access to Gaza. The sacrifice of these three pillars of journalism has enabled the widespread propaganda and the legitimization of Israeli genocide in Gaza. Along with the breach of three fundamental journalistic principles, the use of linguistic bias and the suppression of counter viewpoints are two known tactics that the West has adopted to censor the genocide. Many scholars have pointed out the disparity in the languages associated with Palestine and Israel in the news. It can be as subtle as using passive and dehumanizing vocabulary to downplay Palestinian suffering and to avoid naming Israeli military as the perpetrator.
Shame.
Western press justify Israeli war crimes by framing Palestinian struggle as terrorism. If the IDF bombs a hospital, it's because that hospital is run by Hamas. You know the saying in the news. Through Western lens, everything in Gaza is deemed as a hideout of Hamas. Therefore, Israeli cause will always prevail as a war on terrorism and never a genocide. Censorship in Western media can turn out very violent. Activists and scholars are at risk of persecution for speaking up against the genocide. student encampments were violently suppressed by the police in countries like the US. In Canada, just recently, 3 students from the Vancouver Island University got expelled for organizing campus activism to support Palestine. Any criticism against Zionism will be deemed as a hate crime against Jewish people and face severe consequences, even though Zionism and Judaism aren't similar at all. Canada has been complicit with the genocide by Israel. It still holds strong economic and political ties with Israel. Millions of dollars to flow into funding the IDF. Politicians are very vocal in support of the Israeli apartheid project, but completely ignore the atrocity wreaked upon Gaza every day. While Western legacy media is still displaying the lack of journalistic integrity in its heavily biased coverage of the genocide, we still have to rely on independent citizen journalism to deliver factual news about the disastrous reality that Palestinian people are going through every day. A report from the World Press Freedom Index indicates that Gaza has become the most dangerous place for journalists due to the persecution from Israeli forces and harassment from settlers. As of 2026, 260 media professionals have been killed during the war in Gaza, according to a report from the UN. And the number, sadly, is still growing every day if we don't take action. And to end this talk, I want to give my appreciation and gratitude to journalists and media workers who are risking their life to fight Zionist imperialism and deliver the truth to us and to the world. Thank you, and free Palestine.